Good morning, Amsterdam. It's great to be here. And it's amazing I'm going to get real-time feedback on how interesting I am to know whether I outperform the bag and whether the bag has your interest. So I'm going to break the '09 model of black and white. I'm going to bring a lot of color to this presentation. So I'm leading the end-to-end planning transformation at Coty, specifically implementing '09. And a year ago, I was sat where you are today. And we'd only just agreed to start to go on the journey with '09 and just starting the detailed design. 1 year on, we're about a month away from go live with our first markets on the demand planning module. Within 6 months, we hope to have the whole global organization onto '09 demand and S&OP. So you know who I am. And what I'm going to talk about is how we identified the value and our why, as suggested. Now you're wondering, who are Coty? So here's a brief introduction. So, fragrance, makeup, skincare, that's our core. Pretty complex business. We obviously have our own brands in CoverGirl, Max Factor, Rimmel, but we also have a lot of brands under license like Gucci, Burberry, David Beckham, and Adidas. This month, we celebrated 120 years, so we've been around a while, 6 billion in turnover, so we're big but not massive. We're in most countries, 12,500 SKUs, so pretty complex. Most of our demand planners handle about 2,000. We produce most of our own items, but we have a very healthy third manufacturing base. So we are pretty complex. We go from mass, CoverGirl in Walmart, Adidas shower gels in A.S. Watson's, through to ultra niche Orveda Coty-owned stores. We're in e-com with Amazon, Tmall, Notino, but we have our own brand.com websites with Kylie and Kim, and as soon as they post something on Instagram, our sales rocket. We do a lot of our own direct selling, but also have a healthy distributor market, and we have huge shelf life challenges. So we cover most business scenarios, which is what makes Coty quite an interesting business case. Those of you who are here at your first event, or those of you who feel that you've been at too many transformation events and keep hearing the same messages, here's your transformation bingo scorecard to play along. So the serious note is, as you go through the day, I'm at the start of the journey, so you should be able to think about how you're going to answer many of these questions. And the first person who shouted bingo, I think Stefan said it would be a 10% discount. But go talk to him about that. So how do you identify value? So I've done a lot of reference calls and heard a lot of people saying, well, we want to use digital twin, we want to improve service, we want to reduce inventory. They're great, they're outcomes. But really, you need to go deep and you need to apply why. So think about it as a true root cause. So saying improving service is not a real value driver. You need to get down to the nugget of, look, we really want to fully automate phase in, phase out by linking real-time stocks to real-time forecasts and eliminating all the manual effort. That's the level you need to be getting to. So where do you start? The best thing is to ask your organization.
Advanced planning system that create machine learning.
Hypo calculation.
From multiple sources.
Help me drive my focus
to a minimal touch process.
More automated deployments.
focus on the full segment.
The automated alert.
Fully integrated reports
into one system.
To select for us all of those combinations.
User experience.
Reducing the amount of manual intervention.
Simplify the work for the planners.
So we have over 500 people working in planning, and all of them could probably talk for an entire day around what works, doesn't work, and what they want to improve. So where do you start? We drew a box around the full end-to-end planning processes, starting with demand, going through deployment, production, all the way up to suppliers. And it wasn't a hard box. We just said, this is what we're going to study. If anyone else would like to come and join the study, like finance or logistics, you're welcome to. But we ended up with this as our box at the processes we looked at. Then we started looking at those processes with the lens of where is the value? So what could we automate? So Stefan was talking about it. What can you take from digital to tribal? So yes, you sit there at your desk making a lot of key decisions, but how do you make those decisions? What knowledge do you have? And we really pushed the boundaries on, we really believe we can digitize many of these elements. Interface losses, we have more systems than anyone else. That's not me saying that. That's what O9 told us when they first started working with us. So we have a lot of losses as we hand over data between our different systems because they don't talk to each other perfectly. Anything taking up too much time and effort, obvious, everything in Excel. How do you get rid of Excel from the planning systems? All the reports you create, everything you send out. Process synchronization. So are you in sync with the other areas of the business? Do you tie up naturally with the finance cycle? Are you able to give them the data they need on the time they need it? And finally, we had an eye on new technology, what was out there and how we felt we could leverage this. And we did this through the business process experts. So you'll have people in your organization who own certain processes. They already have a list of everything they're working on and trying to improve. They also know what they've tried to improve and failed, and they know what's out there on the industry and what they'd love to have access to. What we did a bit differently was put them all together and start looking at end to end. And then you identify that what isn't a massive issue in one area, but is a loss, when you combine it across the full end to end, it suddenly becomes a much bigger issue. So having gone through this, we identified what we called the missing capabilities. And it was a list of 15 buckets of missing capabilities. But below that, we had a lot of key statements. And then we took these missing capabilities and started an iterative process. So we evaluated those missing capabilities. And then we started engaging with advanced planning system providers. And we engaged with a lot. And then we updated our missing capabilities based on what we were seeing. So we kept saying, actually, we like the way you're approaching this, so we'll build it in, reevaluated, went back. So and every time we engage with O9, the standard answer is, we can do anything. So how do you really identify the value and what's available? So we said, okay, is that off the shelf? Is that standard reference model? Show us. Can we do a reference call? Okay, if it's heavy configuration, can we talk to the technical team to understand how difficult this is? And we did this with everyone. So by the end of it, we understood who could really close the gaps, who was specific Coty configuration to close those gaps, and the level of risk associated. And it was at this stage we picked O9, because they closed most of the capability gaps. And the great thing about O9 is the shared vision on, yes, we want to help you solve these issues, and they're real issues. Certain clients said, actually, we believe you're planning wrong. You should change your processes. And you probably know who I'm talking about. So this is a slide we use to engage the business on why we've chosen O9. So advanced forecasting capability. We did a proof of concept on the machine learning algorithms, and it was really impressive. We were like, wow, if we only get a fraction of what that can do, it is light years ahead of where we are with our current stat modeling. Advanced response and optimal decision making. So this is leveraging digital twin to really make fast decisions, try and give instant answers back to the business on incremental opportunities. Elevated visibility and collaboration, letting everybody see the current state, where stock is, any information they need, they should be able to just go and find it. And the final one, which is critical for us, is the instant valuation. So our whole company talks in net revenue, but we were stuck in, at the moment, items and gross sales. So we're not quite talking the same language. So we're not trying to replace the finance process and the valuation. We're just trying to make it good enough to have a seat at the table and join in those discussions to elevate our S&OP and IBP process. Okay, we got that far on our own with no external help. But we had a good business case, some money, we had the tool we wanted to identify. So this is when we went and engaged the business, said, we want some money now, we want to move to the next step. And the first thing we did was created our target operating model, and we did that jointly with McKinsey. And there were two reasons for bringing in McKinsey. One is to bring the outside in, so what is best in class out there, but also just to go fast at high quality. So we did this within 9 weeks, and there was no way we could have done this on our own. And our target operating model outlined our future processes fully end-to-end down to level 2, 2.5, for those of you who know how to map processes. It outlined the people and structures we expect to have in the end state and the technology. But we wrote it knowing we'd picked '09. So the technology part was how are we going to leverage '09? So we did this over 9 weeks. We did a lot of stakeholder interviews, not just within planning, but with finance, commercial. And then we freed up all our business process experts up to 50% of their time. And we freed up a lot more people to join specific sessions. So like around 40 people involved. And McKinsey said that's one thing they've not seen across all their clients was the sheer engagement. Then we had over 60 hours of deep dive workshops. These were more like therapy sessions because everyone realized what we were going to lock in could be around for the next 15 to 20 years. And in Coty, we have no shortage of passionate views. So there were very intense sessions, but we locked on a final design. And it was a combination of Coty issues with best-in-class knowledge from McKinsey. And then when we created the final document, we went back to the key stakeholders and said, this is for your area what we think the key benefits are. Are we going in the right direction? They all gave us the thumbs up. So the target operating model is 200 pages. It is our Bible. It is incredibly powerful. Everyone we've shown it to has found it very user-friendly, and they can scan through and see where we're going. And why is it important to do this? Because if you jump into your first block of, say, demand planning, you don't know necessarily the outputs that you need into supply or into suppliers. So by mapping it all, you know you're not making any errors. And we built all our missing capabilities into this target operating model, but then they became building blocks. So they're not missing anymore. They're our core building blocks going forward on the journey. And they go the whole way through the target operating model. And then we reevaluated that with McKinsey's help, and we found some extra value, which was great. So at this point, we went back to the business, said, we're ready to go. So with our value building blocks, it underpinned everything. So it allowed us to build the ROI. Now, we have a CFO who is incredibly tight. He is openly says he doesn't like to open his wallet. We have a declared strategy of paying down our debt. So we don't have the normal rules of either a 10-year or 5-year payback on software. We're competing with all the other priorities in the business. So we had to have a very aggressive ROI. But by focusing on the value building blocks, we were clear where that was going to come from. So actually, it was a huge favor that he pushed us down this route because we knew exactly where the value was coming from, which then built our roadmap because we had demand came first because it unlocks the most value. And likewise, it was an obvious sequence. We knew our priorities, we had our sponsor buy-in, and then it underlined our change story back to the organization. What was more important, we keep going back to the target operating model and those building blocks to check on any scope changes. So although we started out with, yes, of course, we can do anything, we came across a number of tricky design hurdles in demand, which would have been easy to walk away from and compromise, say, yeah, we're not going to fix that. But it's like, no, this is one of our value building blocks. We can't drop this because then we don't deliver the value. So we locked ourselves away for a number of days on certain topics to make sure we found a fix. And we've been told by McKinsey in certain areas we're actually going to break new ground, new capabilities, and some of those elements are actually going to make the standard '09 reference model, so everyone's going to benefit. The other mantra we had was the 1-degree shifts. So the small changes that don't feel like a big deal, Are they going to prevent you landing where you expect to be in the end state? So our target operating model comes with a 5-year vision. We know where we're going to be. It involves sitting on a beach, and there's a whole story behind that, but that's a separate presentation. So if you make a couple of 1-degree shifts, are you going to miss your destination? And it's not one on its own that causes an issue. It's 10 to 15 small decisions that don't feel like a big deal, but when you add them up, you're in the wrong place. So we were very hard on checking everything we were dropping from the scope or changing to make sure we were still going in the right direction. And also making sure something that felt small for demand wasn't going to impact supply or production planning and the other elements. So back to my bingo card. So the reality is, if you get your value drivers right and you invest the time in really getting down to those nuggets, it underlines everything. And I promise you, if you get them right, you will shout bingo. So, things we wish we'd known sooner. Data, 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 data. And I know many of you are sitting there going, hang on, we've been at this event before. We hear everyone talk about data. We heard people talk about data. What we heard was cleansing and transformations. So we cleansed all our data. We mapped all our transformations. We were feeling pretty good. What we wish we'd heard was data lake architecture is critical. One of the things we're doing to unlock value is not following the standard '09 model of crawl, walk, run. To get the value, we have to jump straight to walk. We're not big enough to have pilots running for years and learnings. We need something that works from day one, and we need to switch off all the old systems, and we need to go fast. Because we're jumping straight to walk, we're trying to incorporate a lot more data than you normally would do on just a pilot, which means the data lake architecture is critical. So you need to understand what you're processing at what level, all your delta loads. And if you start getting lost here, you start to realize you need to make sure you have the right capabilities. So if you're getting on a supply chain project and you don't have your data lake experts involved, go and get them involved, pull them in, get them to sign off on the data lake architecture, all the data bricks, everything. It's critical. And then the final thing is the governance. So the data side of the project is almost as complex as the '09 build. So you need to sign off your data lake architecture. You need the technical documentation, the same way you do with your '09 build, and then monitor those build sprints and make sure it's being tested. Do not outsource this, say, please go build me these transformations and check on it 6 months later, because you may find you've missed the mark quite considerably. We've taken these learnings and we're going to do things differently. We didn't lose too much time, but we're just going to apply the same rigor to the data side as we do to the '09 build side. And then finally, we chose not to compromise on the value. We went after some really hard decisions. It was a tough journey, but we're now 4 weeks out from go live, and everybody we show the solution to is like, wow, this is brilliant. All the hard work has gone into the back end. It's pretty complex, but the front end is so simple. People are going, hang on, you've managed to automate that. All the alerts just tell me where to go and look. My life is going to be so much easier. Now, we've got a lot of colleagues across industries, different areas, and we know people who've been sold into actually save some money, decomplexify, reduce your risk, don't go after what you really want to unlock the value. There is no easy journey on an advanced planning system. So we're talking to them, and they've had as equally as tough a journey, but they're not as excited about what they're getting because it's not what they originally wanted. Whereas our excitement over the solution is what has really kept us going. Okay, so that's my final message. Here all day, there's quite a few of my amazing team, our amazing team, so across '09, Coty, McKinsey, and Accenture here, so please come and talk to any of us. This was pretty much the journey up until a year ago, so we have plenty more learnings from the last year that we'll happily talk to you about. So thank you very much.